This conference will now be recorded.
So in the previous class, like we have discussed about the, how to define the classes and how to create the objects from the classes. So in this today's class, I will discuss about the interfaces and access modifiers, or like we can call it as a data modifiers and the default parameters. So today, like we'll discuss about the these three concepts, so that we can complete the topics related to the classes and objects. So first of all, what is meant by the interfaces? Any idea, Karthik?
Sir, like that is a user-defined class, sir. Like without initialization.
Yeah, correct. So basically, so in the TypeScript, so interfaces are interfaces uh, defines the structure of the class. For example, I have a class called employee. So inside the employee, I'll be having the properties and methods. So in the interfaces will helps us to like the what are all the properties and the what are all the properties data types. So interfaces will be like in the TypeScript, like if you say in the general way. So interfaces are mainly used to check the data type. Like it is used to check the data type. So whatever you told, no, that is correct. So basically interfaces will define the properties and the methods. The implementation, right, like the values we are going to assign, right, those will be taken care in the classes. Those will be those initializing the values, or like assigning the values to the these properties and methods will takes care of by classes and the object. So mainly, so interfaces will defines the structure of the class, or you can consider, so like you can consider it as it's a contract between the class and its properties. So mainly it is used to check the data type of the class. So basically, so once if you define the interfaces in the TypeScript, basically we will be using these interfaces to check the data types, right? So it won't compile, it won't compile to the JavaScript, because it's a basic model, or we are using for the type checking only. So let me show you the basic syntax, like how to create the interface. So if you want to create the interface in the TypeScript, so we'll be using the interface keyword by followed by the interface name. Interface name. So inside the interface, like we'll be defining the properties, like property, and it's a data type. So for example, like we can define the multiple properties, property 2, and it's a data type, and we can define the methods also, methods, and it's a data type. So this is how like we are going to define the basic interface. Let me show you with the small example, so we can get the clear idea. So I'll create one more file here. Control here. So I will name it as a data modifiers. So we have just created one file called like data modifiers. So let me create the small interface, like for example, interface I'll name it as a I employee. So because like for the interface and the classes like will be like defining the like similar syntax. That's why I mean the only keyword will be changed. So like to represents no like initial like before the I mean employee name I just added the I so that we can easily identify this as an interface instead of class. No, sometimes like whenever if you take the large application, so we'll be having the multiple interfaces and multiple classes, right? So to differentiate between these two, like I have just given the interface name as a like I refers to interface. Like if you don't give also it will works, but first like for easily identifying, so I have given as a interface name as a I employee. Now I'll define the its property names. For example, emp name. So its data type should be string for the employee name, and I'll give emph number, and I'll give employee ID number, and I'll give for example get employee role. I mean I will expect the I mean this data type should be string. So this is the basic interface. Now I want to create an object like in this structure. Like I want to create an object in this structure, uh, so that like the each I mean that object inside the object the all the properties should be follow this way. I mean I mean it should contain these three properties and one method. Let me show you like creating the object. For example, I'll take the class employee. I mean, I'll create the class. Later, like we'll go for the object class employee. So now I want this class. Class should be the I mean similar kind of the structure. So this I mean this interface structure. For that, what I'll do is class employee. I will use the implements keyword. Implements I employee. So this implements keywords like will be used like we are going to implement the employee class based on this I employee interface. That's why like I have used the implements keyword here. So see now here we can see the I mean implements employee incorrectly implements interface I employee because like we have not defined these properties, right? That's why it is throwing the error. Let me define these values like employee name string equals to Venkat, and employee age number equals to 24, employee ID number equals to I'll give it as 1012, and I'll define one more method like get emp role return is an associate. So this is how like so this is the employee class, right? So we are just implementing by using the interface like iEmployee interface. So it will checks like I mean whatever the properties are like methods present in the iEmployee will be presented in this particular class. For example, I will add one more thing. For example, employee department string. So employee department string. Now I'll create the object now. String equals to I'll give it as IP. So where employee object equals to new employee. So I'll give, employee object dot employee department equals to, or like I'll give employee object should be I employee. So here we can see like whenever if I'm going to create this one employee object, now we can see like employee department was not defined inside this particular I employee. So that's why like we are getting the error here. So it should accept the only those fields only. So I'll remove this one. So I'll give employee object as employee name equals to, for example, if I can remove the values from here. If I want to pass the values from dynamic elements, like we can pass here also. For example, I'll give its name as Karthik, and employee object dot employee age equals to 25, and I'll console this one, console.log employee object, or like I can give the employee ID also, employee object dot employee ID equals to 1013. So let me console this one and let me run. So TSC and the file name data modifiers ts. So it will compile. Next we need to change the file name in index.html also if you want to see the output. So I will change this to data modifiers.js. Now I'll just let me refresh this file. Yeah, we can see that like we have created the employee object with this following properties like employee name, employee age, and employee ID. So this is like one way of using the interface, and I can like let me show you like another one more example. Let me create one more interface. I student. So student name string student marks number. Now I want to use this interface for the I just want to create an object by using the object literal, and I want to use this interface as a type for that particular object. For example, let me create let uh, student obj. So I will assign its type as I student. So let me create an object directly by using the object literal. So in this object, so we can see like here. So this particular object is missing the following properties from the I student, like the student name and student marks. So because like we have given its type as a I student, right? That's why like these two properties should be mandatory here. For example, student name, I'll give it as a Ravi, and student marks I'll give it as a 100. Now let me add one more property like student object dot age equals to 23. So now here we can see the we can see the error because the student age was not defined inside this interface. So the main objective or like main idea behind the interfaces was like, so it is mainly used to check the the data types. I mean, whatever the properties present in this, like whatever the properties present in the interface, it should have the I mean, object or classes should be having the same members, same members with the same data types. So we can't I mean, if you want to add or if you want to uh, remove the some properties from the interface, means like it will throw the error. So the main intention was like to check the data types, I mean to check the type checking and whether it is having the all the properties or not. So in the real time applications, no, so basically for each and every response or the data we are getting from the backend, so we are going to write these interfaces. I will be called these as a models also, so we'll be writing the model for the, so whenever, for example, if I'm getting the some employee data which is having the 20 properties, so I just need to validate whether we are getting the all the 20 properties from the backend. So in are they missing any properties and its data types? So for that reason, like we'll be writing the interfaces in the separate file, and we'll be importing those interfaces in the components, and we'll be doing the type checking by assigning like this. So this is a small example. So whenever if you're going for whenever if you're going to discuss the Angular concepts, no, so we'll show you I mean, how we are getting the data from the real time, and how we are going to assign these interfaces to the particular data. So now, for example, so sometimes I may be having the some properties are not mandatory. So at that time, I can define the optional
Question mark.
property as, for
Question
example,
mark.
student age. So for that I'll be giving the question mark number. So here we can see, I mean even though I have not added the student age property, this student object, so still we don't see any error, because I have given it is an optional by I mean denoting the question mark to this property. For example, if I remove this one, no, so definitely we'll get the error, because it will be expecting it as a mandatory. So I mean, this is this is all about the interfaces. uh, Next, I mean, we'll move to the data modifiers.
Sir, I have one doubt. Sir, I have one doubt,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
సార్ నిన్ను కూడా కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ లో సేమ్ ఇలాగే వాల్యూస్ పాస్ చేసి ఇనిషియలైజ్ చేసాం కదా సార్, దానికి దీనికి డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటి సార్?
I didn't get you, Karthik.
నిన్న కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ లో కూడా సేమ్ వాల్యూస్ మనం డైనమిక్ గా పాస్ చేసి మల్టిపుల్ ఎంప్లాయీస్ 1 ఎంప్లాయీ 2 లాగా క్రియేట్ చేసాం కదా, దానికి కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ కి ఇంటర్ఫేస్ కి డిఫరెన్స్ ఏంటి సార్? ఇంకా ఇక్కడ కూడా ఇనిషియలైజ్ చేయడం లేదు.
కన్స్ట్రక్టర్లు ఏంటంటే మనం డేటా వాల్యూస్ ని ఇనిషియలైజ్ చేస్తున్నాము. ఇంటర్ఫేస్ ఏం చేస్తుందంటే జస్ట్ ఆ ప్రాపర్ మనం ఇంటర్ఫేస్ లో ఏవైతే వాల్యూస్ ప్రాపర్టీస్ డిఫైన్ చేసామో ఆ ప్రాపర్టీస్ మొత్తము క్లాస్ లో ఐ మీన్ ఆ పర్టికులర్ క్లాస్ లో ఉన్నాయో లేదో మాత్రం చెక్ చేస్తుంది. కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ ఏంటంటే మనకి వాల్యూస్ ని డైనమిక్ గా సెట్ చేసుకోవడం కోసం మన కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ మెథడ్ యూస్ చేస్తాము.
ఓకే, రియల్ టైమ్ లో ఇప్పుడు మీరు బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ వచ్చే డేటాని మనం చెక్ చేయడానికి రిటర్న్ ఆఫ్ టైప్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్ లాగా డిఫైన్ చేస్తామా సార్?
కరెక్ట్. సో ఇప్పుడు నాకు బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ నుంచి సమ్ ఒక 20 ప్రాపర్టీస్ వస్తున్నాయి. సో ఆ 20 ప్రాపర్టీస్ అంటే మనకి ఫస్ట్, బిఫోర్ వీఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు షో ద ఆల్ ద డేటా ఇన్ ద UI, so I mean whenever if you're going to make any API call, so first we should have the some communication between the UI developer and the backend developer, uh, so that I mean, so I am so the contract should be so I'll be calling this particular API call, and I am expecting the response should be in this format, so that the backend developer will prepare in the similar format, or sir, who will decide this particular response, so both the UI and the backend, before they are going to start the developing the code, they will communicate each other, and they will decide what are all the mandatory properties based on the project scope document. So in the project scope document, no, they will provide, so this API should should have this particular request format, and the response format should be like this. So if you get any error, so we need to send the error code. So like all this will be discussing between the like the UI and the backend developer. So sometimes like there might be chances of missing some properties. So to avoid such type of scenarios, so if you write the interfaces, no, so it will be good. So we can write the interfaces by seeing the scope document. These are the properties. So each property will be having this kind of data type. So we can check easily. So if anything was missed by the backend developers, like we can ask them, so guy, like I mean we are missing this thing. And whenever if you're sending the data to the backend also, so when for example I have a form, and whenever if I enter all the form details, and I just want to send some object to the backend, which is having 10 properties, so there also like we'll be checking. So before we are going to send to the backend, so we can check by using the interfaces. So all the properties will be having the, whether it's a string data type, or the number, or that is a boolean kind of thing. So in these scenarios, like we'll be using the interfaces in the most of the times.
Okay, sir. Understood, sir. Understood, sir.
So you do one thing, like if you start practicing the some sample Angular projects, no, like
Okay, sir.
try to create the interfaces, and try to assign that interface type to the object class, object, or array kind of classes,
Okay, sir.
so that like you can get clear clarity.
Okay, sir. I will work on it, sir.
Yeah. So next, like we'll go to the data modifiers. So basically, here, like I have simply defined the class, like employee class, right? So it is having the employee name and employee age, employee ID. So for this properties, by default it will be having the like all the members of this particular, we can call this as the members to this particular class. Members are the, we can call it as properties, also properties of this class. So by default it will be having the public, the data, public data type. It will consider it as a public data type. So what does this mean? Like if you define this particular property with the public, for example, let me define it this way: public. So this property, like I can able to access this property inside this particular class and outside the class also. I can able to access this particular property inside the class and the outside the class also. If you define this particular member should be public type, so we can access this particular employee name within this class and outside the class also. Let me tell you. So basically, like we have the three different data modifiers. So one is the public, and we have the private, and we have the protected. So if you use the the public, so it is used to access the member of class anywhere. We can able to access this particular member or the property inside the class or outside the class. So whereas, for example, if I give its data modifier as like private, so it is only accessible to the inside the class. I can't access this particular property, property in outside the class. Whereas if I give the protected, so I can able to access inside the class and its subclass, sub or like child classes. So like this is the like basic difference between these three. So I mean, once if you define this particular property as a public, so we can able to access this particular employee name. So inside this particular class, for example, here I can return uh, instead of associate, I can return like this dot emp name. For example, let me change this to uh, get name. So I can access the CMP name inside this particular class, and I can able to access here also. I mean, I can able to modify the name, and I can able to do it. For example, let me, yeah, I'll keep it like this only. So now like I will give this as a private EMPH. Like, let me remove this one. See here we can see. So public employee name, and I have given for employee as it's a data modifier value as like private. See I can see like inside the class I can able to access the employee age. For example, this start employee age. So the type should be number. So whenever if I use the private, no, I can able to access inside the only class. I cannot access the outside the class, because here I have given private employee age number as 24. Now here outside the class, I am trying to modify its value to the 25. So here we can see like employee employee object, like property employee age is private and only accessible within the class. So this is the like difference between the public and private. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, by
So
default,
now
it is public, sir.
yeah,
Default,
by
it is
default,
public
like
only.
public. For example, if you don't define anything, so by default it will take it as a public. I mean, whenever if there is a requirement where I want to access this particular property inside the class, then we can define it as a private. And now we'll see the protected. For example, I'll define this as a protected and this as a public. Now like we have the class employee, right? Let me create one more child class. So this protected also, see here we can see I am trying to access the employee ID outside the class, so that like I am getting the error, because this protected can be used inside this class, inside the class, and it's a child classes only. We can't access in the outside. For example, let me show you here. I'll remove this employee age and I'll give it as employee ID. So I can able to access inside the class. Let me create one more child class by using this employee. For example, class Angular developer extends employee. So I'll give employee department as one more field here. String equals to IT. Next, like guys, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Vijay is saying like audio was not audible to him. Okay. Employee department as a string. Now I'll create constructor, so which will accept multiple properties like employee name, comma employee age, comma employee ID, comma employee department. So super. So employee name, comma employee age, comma employee ID. So now I will define like this start EMP department, uh, department, sorry, EMP department as some IT. Why it is showing employee super, employee name, employee age, employee ID. Let me remove this one. Sorry, because like I have not used the constructor here, right? That's why like I am getting the error. So let me use the constructor function also. Constructor name, comma age, comma ID. This dot emp name equals to name. This dot emp age equals to age. This dot emp ID equals to ID. So let me remove the values here, so we can directly assign the values dynamically. See here I have given this employee ID as protector, right? So I can able to access this employee ID inside this class, and now like I want to access this particular employee ID here also in this. Let me write one more method like get employee ID. So it will return this dot emp ID. So here we can see this employee ID is here, right? So we can able to access inside the class, and we can able to access the inside the its child class also. Whereas for example here if you see employee object dot employee ID, so we can't access here. So let me remove this one and let me pass the values. Karthik. Let me rename the change. Class name as Angular developer. New Angular developer. Karthik 25, comma 1012, comma IT. So let me print this one. Console.log employee obj. So let me, okay, we have one more console, right? Let me compile this one. Yeah, it's got compiled. Yeah, now we can see like the employee name, employee age, employee ID, and the employee department. For example, now I will change this type as like protected to private. Now we can see like we will get error because like I mean employee ID I have defined the private, right? So I can able to access only within the class. I can't able to access in the subclass also. So like this is the difference between the I mean public, private, and the protected. Now like we'll see one more thing. Like we have one more I mean type like read only. Let me show you. Let me remove this public. I'll give it as a read only. Now I'll create one employee object where emp object equals to new employee. I will pass Venkat 23 1012. So now we'll get the console.log employee object. So now what I will do was like I will try to modify this name Venkat. So what I will do was employee object dot employee name equals to Ravi. See here like we are getting the error because like can't assign to employee name because it is a read only property. I mean I have given it I mean it's this data modifier is a read only, so that I can able to use that whenever if I'm creating the object. After creating the object I cannot change that particular value. For example, now I'll take employee object dot employee age equals to 29. Now I'll print the one more time console.log employee object. So let me comment this one. So if you use the read only, we can't modify it. I mean, if you don't use the read only, we can modify it. See, by default, I have given its value as 23, right? So after modifying it, like we will see the output. Sorry, I have given the same name. Let me comment this one. So I'll compile and show you the output. Yeah, here we can see like I mean while creating the object with the class name, like I have given value as 23. Later like I have modified to the 29, so it will work, sir. Whenever if you give the read only, so it won't work, sir, because like it is the read only, we can't able to modify its value. So I mean this is all about the data modifiers. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. Sir, can you tell me one real-time example where we use read only, sir?
Read only, for example, I mean I have a for example, I have created the on employee form, Karthik. So
Okay,
I
sir.
have created the employee form, and I have generated the one employee ID to that particular employee. So later, for example, whenever if I give access to the employee, so where you can able to modify it. I mean, where you can able to modify his details, like you just want to update, for example, his mobile number or email address, his bank details, so that I can make these forms as a editable. And when it comes to the employee ID, so once employee ID was generated, he can't modify it. So in that scenarios, like I can give its value as read only, so that like I can mention this in the like disabled mode.
Yes,
So
sir.
whenever
Got
like
it.
if we have some unique scenarios where like we don't want to change the data, so it will be constant. I mean always. So at that scenarios we can go for the read only.
Okay, sir. I understood, sir.
So now like we'll see the default parameters in TypeScript. So basically, I mean, whenever you define any function or any method in the TypeScript, so we'll be able to pass the parameters, right? So in the TypeScript, like we have one advantage where like we can set the default parameters. For example, let me create one function add a, its type is number, b, its type is number, so it should return a plus b. So it will return the a plus b. Now I'll call this function as like add 10 comma 20. Now it will work. Now what I'll do is now I'll do add 10. So what will happen? So basically here we are, it is showing like error, but in the JavaScript, no. So we are expecting the two parameters here, a comma b, but like whenever we are calling the this particular function, we are passing the only single argument here, so we are not passing the second argument. So in the TypeScript, so like we can show the error, but whereas in the JavaScript, no, so by default, like if you don't pass any value, no, it will take its value as a undefined. So in those scenarios, like we'll be having the chances of getting the errors. So for this, like I can set the default value to it. For example, by assigning to the value to this b colon number equals to 100. So in this scenario, like we won't get any error. So I have taken as a two parameters. The first as a number and the b as a number. So here what I was doing was like I have given some default value. So this is called the default parameters, like assigning the some values to this particular parameter. So if I give no b colon number equals to 100, so if I don't pass any value while calling the function, it will take this value as a 100. For example, if I provide the value, it will take this value. So let me print this one. Let sum equals to add 10 comma 20 console.log sum. Let me remove this one. Yeah, it's got compiled. Now we can see the output as a 30, because like we have passed the two parameters like 10 comma 20. Now what I will do was like I don't want to pass the second argument now. So whenever if you don't pass the second argument, automatically it will takes its value as a 100. Now run. Let me run once again. So now we can see the output value is a 110. So this is the advantage of the default parameters. So even though whenever sometimes whenever if you forget whenever if you have some optional argument, so that we can simply ignore that value. So in that scenario, like this default argument will take care. So this is all about the default parameters in the TypeScript. This is all for the today's class. Tomorrow, like we'll discuss about the differences between the varlet and the constant, and we'll discuss about the difference between the functions and arrow functions. Tomorrow I will I will complete this TypeScript course. Like so once if you discuss about the latent constant, and like we have, if you discuss about the arrow functions, and we have one more like a few more features called like rest parameters, spread, and object destructuring, so that we can conclude like we have covered the all the concepts. And we have one more concept in the text called like modules and the namespaces. So I will cover that particular concept in the later, like if you want to proceed the Angular course, the modules and the namespaces are not required for now. So whenever it is required, no, like I can take that class in like in the middle of the Angular classes.
Okay, sir.
That's it, guys. Yeah.